we're looking at annual reports and how to analyze them, and to be able to choose good partners that we can collaborate with. So that's going to be sort of our main goal today, is to find actually a way to choose good collaborative partners in our sector. So let's just make a start here. I can see there's 22 with us today. There's still quite a few short, but hopefully they'll be here soon. Okay, if we look at the in Denmark anyway, I think in this everywhere in the world, companies have to produce this annual report that states how the company is actually faring this time. Oh yes, don't worry, I'll record the session. Yeah, and we'll also put it up on Canvas straight away in 1 second. If it's let's see here, files. Upload. Okay, so it's also on Canvas now, so you can also open it there if that helps, and we'll also record the session. We'll just go start again just to make sure if anybody comes later. Okay, yeah, as you can see, we are looking at the annual reports today, looking at as a way to choose our collaborative partners within the industry. So it should be a pretty sort of interesting day, really, to go in and look at how companies actually fare through the year. Are they making money? Or are they running at a loss? And I think all over the world, as I said before, that all companies, or most companies, have to have this annual report for different reasons, for also for themselves, that they actually think, okay, how is our company actually running, but also sort of for tax purposes, one thing is another. If we look at a business, if we think about what actually happens in the business, we make decisions and we have some budgeting, and it's a description of the expected economic consequences of the actions and of the future period. And we go in and we implement, we have the accounts, preparation, the description of the actual economic consequences of the past period. Then we have a control period, and this comparison between the budget and the accounts for the same period, and then we go back in this circle, and this runs continuously. And if I sort of lay my head on it and say, if this doesn't actually happen, then it's quite it could be quite serious consequences for company, because they don't actually have the full overview of the company and what's happening. So that's it's a good way to keep tabs on your company, and if things are going as planned. Now in the lecture for the business economics in 318, we said about our budget and things that what can be in the budget, and this you can read that lecture. But today we're going to be looking at the actual report that companies have to prepare. Sorry. As you see here, we have an annual financial statement. This is an important part of the annual report, as it's a description of the financial consequences of the actions performed during the actual year. So it gives us a good base, good overview of what actually happened through the year. In addition to the fact that the accounting legislation says that most every company in Denmark must prepare an annual financial statement covering the 12 months. It's also fair to satisfy the information needs of various groups and religious groups as well. The annual financial statement consists of two parts. We look sort of this into two different areas. It's the income statement and the balance sheet. And if we sort of look at what happens here, and like I said, it's almost every company in Denmark. There's some smaller companies that are exempt, that don't have to report this, to do the report. It's companies that don't make or don't turn over a lot of money. But mainly sort of all construction companies and things like this, they have to do it. So you sort of look at the main contents here. You have your first balance there in 2019 or wherever, the year before. Then you have over the next period your income statement, and at the end of the year, then you have the end balance. So we can sort of gives us a good overview of actually what's actually happened in this period from 2019 to 2020. Or whatever you're actually working on, of course. So that's sort of the main sort of content that we have to, that has to go into this report, that we can use to choose different companies or that we think would be good to work with. But also, if we're going to sort of go in and could maybe state, so if we have to pre-qualify any companies, we can also use the economic side of things as a preference as well. So analyzing the annual report, we have this income statement, and when we're sort of setting up the income statement, we said it's set of the company's revenue and then subtract the company's costs. And we'll get into this in a while. Now I'll just sort of run through this, and it's explained as we go through the PowerPoint. And we have the company's revenue, the money that they actually have made through the year, and then we have this. We subtract the costs, and it gives us this idea of how much money the company has actually made. I say it's actually a rough idea of what the company has made. And according to the section 23 of the Danish Financial Statements Act, that the income statement should be prepared in a schematic form. This means it has to be sort of laid out in a way that we can actually understand it. And the requirement of which terms in financial statements should have the order in which they should be included. The law will ensure that you always have a clear and comparable income statement. And this is really important for us. The main word here, or two words, is a clear and comparable. If it's not clear and it's not comparable, what can we use it for? Nothing. So that's the main sort of that's the main goal for this for the law, so we can actually go in and we can compare different companies. The income statement in the annual report is that the cost must be grouped by function or by art. And we go in and look this by function divided. Statements, so it divides the costs of the company according to where they've been used. For example, you can split costs of production, sales, administration, etc. Or the arts divided income statement, cost between the nature of the company. It could be, for example, cost divided into production, consumption, wages, rent, and so on. And the breakdowns apply to all business costs regardless of where the company they originate from. So there's two different ways to sort of work this. I think sort of the main one that I've sort of seen is the function divided. As we can see here, where we have the income statement, we have the revenue, we have the production costs, and this gives us this gross profit. So a general overview of what the company has actually made. But there's also some other things we have to take into consideration here, where we have the total here. If we look in 2015, this is taken from 2016. Now, this is a report from one of actually the larger Danish construction companies, MT Højgaard Group. They work in and around Denmark, but they also work, actually all over the world. Europe, the Maldives. I'm not actually sure if they're in Asia or not, but I'm pretty sure they are. But there's quite a large company, especially sort of on a Danish scale. But you can see here, if we look at the total here in, and this is kroner in millions. So in 2015, they actually made 289.6 million profit. And then they actually had in this year, 216, we're looking at 10.2. So there's actually been quite a drop in from 2015 to 2016. So that's sort of, something must be accountable there, the way we can actually see. So if we just move on here, let me just go back to normal. Yeah, if we look at the different sort of things that are interesting here for us in the statement, it's the things like the net sales, and this is the sales value as an exclusive VAT. More or less everything that we sort of do has the VAT, the value-added tax on that we have to pay. It goes to the government. Products delivered to customers during the year. We also have production costs, and these are all costs associated with the company's production. It could be raw materials, it could be labor, hourly employees in production, depreciation of machinery and equipment or whatever. So in the profit, the gross profit is also called the cover contribution, is the difference between the net sales and the production costs. And that's what we saw on the other slide here, net sales and production costs here. And we also have administrative costs, which is sort of can include salaries for administration, the people, the office supplies, consultancy services, inventory, depreciation, or whatever. And I'm not sure how far that you sort of in with this. We're talking about inventory depreciation and also machinery and equipment depreciation. I think we have to understand here, if we, let's say, we have a company and we go in and we buy a machine to, let's say we have a company that's making hollow core deck elements. We need a machine to mix the concrete. We buy one and we pay 1 million Danish kroner for it. Every year in our annual report, we can actually claim some tax back, well, because our machine is not, after 1 year, it's not worth 1 million. It's only worth maybe minus 10% or whatever of the cost. So we can actually sort of, and this is actually done because in 8 or 10 years or whatever, then we're going to have to buy another machine because it's probably broken or needs changing or whatever. So because we buy something at one point, it loses sort of its worth in money in that sense. If we buy something for 1 million in 1 year, maybe 8 or 10 years, maybe only be worth 400,000 or 500,000. So, and that's sort of making sure that the company doesn't have to pay tax on a machine that they value to 1 million because we pay 1 million for it. But yeah, and we also have some sales costs and the cost in connection with marketing and sales and distribution of products, for example, advertising or whatever. There could be some commissions, some salaries for sellers, salaried employees, operating costs, depreciation of cars, and so on. But I think what the main thing to see here is that we have a lot of different areas, and it's important that we group these costs in the right areas. So, so we move on now to the last few things here. We have the finance, the income, which includes, for example, the interest on bank deposits and bonds on holdings, as well as the interest rate on client accounts. This is sort of interest rate. We have one money in the bank. We actually get the interest. But the strange thing is here at the moment in Denmark, and this is actually strange. We actually have to pay the bank money to have money in the bank. If you have over 100,000 Danish kroner in the bank, it actually costs you money because the rates, the interest rates, they say are so low at the moment that they're not making any money. So they've started charging us for having money in the bank. Normally, it's the other way around, that we have the finance costs, not the finance income, which includes, for example, interest on bank loans, bank overdrafts, mortgages, and so on. Normally, we pay interest on if we borrow money from the bank, or we have an overdraft. And the overdraft is if, let's say our company is running and the company, we get some income every now and again, but sometimes in the year that our bank account goes into the red or under zero. We actually don't have any money, but we still need to pay our workers whatever. So actually you can make this agreement with the bank that you actually have an overdraft. And the overdraft could be maybe 500,000 Danish kroner. So I don't have to ask, is it okay that I overdraw my account if I have this overdraft with the bank? It's okay that I do it. They're still going to charge me interest, so that's not a problem. But it's something it's a lot cheaper to have an overdraft and use that than actually just not asking the bank and going into the red, using too much money, because then their interest rates are actually a lot higher. So, and there's also going to be profits before tax. It's in the result of ordinary operations, but maybe more important, how well did the company do compared to the previous year? That's also important. How is our company faring? What's happening? What's the situation? Are we on an upward moving curve, or are we actually in a declining curve? So this is sort of, all of this is put into this statement here, as you can see, and this using this statement, the way we can actually use it is to say, okay, how can we also compare? Here we can see we have the account here in millions, so 2016 and 15. Sorry. What we actually can do here, when we're looking into economics, we have some key ratio things we can look at, and it's the contribution ratio and the contribution margin. The contribution ratio is the difference between the income connected to sale and the direct costs, and it's also called the gross profit. So the contribution ratio, we actually find that, as I said before, we have the revenue minus the direct costs. So we have here, we can see here, we have the revenue at the top this year, is 6.8, and the production costs are 6.3. Compared to last year, you can see that we actually had the actual revenue for 2015 was actually lower, but the costs were actually also a lot lower. So, and if we look at the gross profit, then there's actually quite a difference here from 15 to 16. So even just looking at this here, I start to think, what's different in 2016 than to 2015? But we also have this contribution margin. It's given in percent for comparison between products. It could be departments, it could be companies, etc. And this is actually pretty interesting for us because it's this contribution margin we actually can also go in and really use, because the contribution margin looks at the contribution ratio divided with the sales revenue multiplied by 100. It gives us the actual percentage here. So we're going to have a look at this contribution margin. And we can see here, if we use the contribution margin, we have the ratio, which is the 505 here, where we just minus the revenue and the costs. And we also have the revenue here. So we have the 505 divided by 6.8 multiplied by 100, which gives us 7.4%. And this is actually a good way to compare different companies. So now if I was looking for a construction company and I'm thinking, okay, are they a stable company? How can I go in and look at, or so directly sort of look at a comparison between the companies? I can actually use this contribution margin. And not only for this year, I can also do it for last year and the year before and the year before as well, because these annual reports are actually common knowledge. Anybody can go in and says, find these company reports. So this gives us a good idea about the state of the company, which is something you could sort of look into. So what we actually can do now, the thing is, you can also look at the Vietnamese company here, because it's the same system, I would think. If we look at the summary, a small exercise, you can just have we'll see in a moment. But what I think what I want you to do is look at some of the companies in the industry. And maybe just find 3 companies within the construction industry, find their annual report. What does it tell you? Write it down, compare the companies that you found. Which company would you rather do business with? If you had to choose out of 3 companies, if you had to choose one of these companies to work with, and you're thinking, okay, I want a company that's is financial sound, and we'll want to make sure that they're also there at the end of the year and they can also deliver. They won't run into trouble economically or whatever. Which company would you use? And this is where you can use the contribution margin. So okay, good. There we can. It's a direct comparison. We actually use. Now you can also use this link where we also have some Danish companies, but you can also find some Vietnamese companies. That's up to you. I think we'll just run through the slides, because I only have a couple more left before you can take a look at some companies. When we sort of looking at the report, we have this what we call the balance, and the balance sort of provides this sort of a snapshot or a picture of the actual assets the company actually has, and this distinguishes the balance from the components of the financial statement, including the income statement, as the rest relates to according to the accounting period. Sorry. And we also, if we look at the company, it should sort of balance. We have the assets and our liabilities. So we have sort of financial usage and financial leasing. And the financial usage, it could be sort of what comes in here is sort of fixed assets. It could be, for example, production machines, current assets. It could be sort of inventory or whatever. And we have the liabilities on the other side. It could be your own capital, which could be your stock, provisions. It could be pensions, foreign capital. It could be also loans. And the interesting thing that I've actually just thought around when I'm looking at it, we have stock on here, I'm talking about liabilities. An interesting thing, looking back on what we talked about yesterday, about this lean principle, about not having a large stock pile. We just sort of order the components when we actually need them. At the moment in Denmark, we're experiencing something we haven't really experienced before because of Corona and because of the state of the shipping industry at the moment. At the moment in Denmark, toner for printers is very hard to get hold of. Normally, we never have a problem. We just order the toner. We don't have 10 or 15 boxes of toner here at UCN. Every time we need it, the machine actually orders it itself, but we can't get hold of any at the moment. So this idea of not having a large stockpile, sometimes you have to take that up to revision and say, okay, maybe we also have to take into account the current situation in and around the world before we say, okay, we're just going to order when we need it. But that's just sort of it's the first time I've actually seen it happen, but yeah. So the assets and the liabilities normally should balance. And that sort of leads us back to our first slide today, where the main context of the business economics can be seen in this sort of circuit. And we can also see here that this can also be an ongoing check month by month. Did it go as we expected? Why not? Should we change some things or whatever? And that's an important thing when we're looking at things like this. And it's also when we're working. It's taking that step back, creating an overview and say, okay, how are things progressing? It's one of the most important things you can do. Take time to sort of step back. How are we doing? What's happening? What do we need to change, if we need to change anything? And when do we need to change it? Is it as soon as possible or in the next 1 or 2 weeks? But especially with the budget, normally in the larger companies that they have dedicated areas, there are people that actually only work with the budget. So they actually normally give this monthly sort of overview of actually the state of the current state of the company at that moment in time. Okay, that's actually about it for this sort of lecture. What I'd like you to do now is, first of all, you can download the slide from Canvas, and then I'd like you to sort of you can do this in groups. That's okay. Just find 3 companies and try and compare their numbers there, and see if you can find their report and see what it tells you, and how would you compare, and if you had to pick one of the companies, which one would you pick and why? Okay, so yeah, we actually have around half an hour left, I think it is. So we have rough 35 minutes left. So try to find some companies, and I'll give you 15 minutes, and then we can see how things are going. And if you're finished, then you can actually carry on with your project. Okay. So just write a short description of what I want you to do in the chat section.